Hello everybody. How are you today?
We're good. Good to see you, Simone.
Good to see you as well. Thank you very much for joining me today. And so we're live. Welcome everybody to this panel extension. We can call it like that. I'm very happy to have you on board with this project. Let me quickly introduce you. I'm going to go round up from my bottom down. That is Laura Cullen, and she's Global Hospitality Technology Executive at Oracle Hospitality. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Good to be here, and good to be part of this very relevant discussion for our industry today.
Where are you connecting from, Laura?
I am connecting from Maryland in the US. That is where we're located.
Okay, that's great. Amazing. And then we got the man that needs no introduction. That is Max Starkov. What the only thing I can say, if you've been living under a rock, Max is a consultant, is professor of hospitality technology at the New York University. He writes a lot on Hospitality Net, so probably if you're in the industry, and if you don't know Max personally, at least you've read some of his articles or viewpoints. Max, thank you so much for being with us today.
Pleasure to be here.
And you're connecting from New York, right?
Yeah.
That's very good. That's
actually upstate New York. I am at my weekend place here, 5 miles from where the original Woodstock Festival was back in 1969.
That's amazing.
If people remember the Woodstock Festival. Anyway, it's the Catskill Mountains, 100 miles north of Manhattan.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And then we got Jos Schaap, I hope I pronounced it right, CEO and co-founder of Roomdex Incorporated. Hi, Jos. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Simone. Nice to meet everyone, and I'm looking forward to this great conversation.
And where are you connecting from, Jos?
Same like Laura. I'm around the corner from her, also in Maryland.
Okay, that's very good. That's very good. So it's morning time for you, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, guys, so you know how this works. Basically, this panel are an extension of what we wrote on the viewpoints on Hospitality Net. In this case, the viewpoint was initiated by Max, and we all entered the panel. So if you want to have a little more context, you can go online and you can Google it. Is solving labor shortage through technology. You can find it on the Hospitality Net website. And Jill, that is now connected, and she's probably live managing the whole thing. Maybe she can put the link on the description of the video, so you can go straight to the viewpoint. And basically, Max, this is something that you initiated, right? And the main idea is that with travel demand accelerating again, that's obviously a good thing, the hospitality industry is experiencing a new challenge, and that is labor shortage. And this is something that we're seeing everybody pretty much. I'm seeing this with my clients. I'm pretty sure you're seeing this with your clients as well. And it's something that is pretty much on every news website. I've read so much about that. And I really liked the angle you took. And even before we started this panel, we started talking a little more. So I will give you the word in a minute. And but before we go there, I would like to ask you something that is very close to me. And that is the fact that, in my opinion, the fact that all these people moved away from the hospitality industry because of furloughs, because of layoffs, people being fired, etc. And all these skilled people move to jobs in other sectors, right? That are less dependent to events like the COVID-19, right? And the first question that comes to mind, because I remember it was hard even before the pandemic to find the right people, right? I talk a lot with seasonal hotels, for example, that is always a big problem for them to find the right people. And of course, this is getting worse with the pandemic. And so my question will be, and again, I'm going clockwise, so I'm going to ask this to Laura first. Do you think these skilled people that used to work in hospitality for maybe even decades and now moved to other sectors. Do you think at some point they will come back because they miss hospitality, or do you think these people is gone for good?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying, Simona, that the hospitality industry is an attractive industry by nature. It's the industry that creates long-lasting memories for people. Compared to other industries, it's a very diverse, I think, workforce from an industry perspective. And hoteliers do have some inspirational mission statements and culture. So I think it's really an attractive industry. And fact is that hospitality gets embedded into your DNA. So I do believe that I'm an optimist by nature. I believe most professionals are sticking around or will come back because of their passion for industry and the joy of touching people's lives with memorable experiences. At the same time, I will say that I believe there is going to be a need as well to train a new generation of professionals and also retrain potentially the existing workforce. All that is needed. A new generation, because there is a significant need of new skills. I think we need in the industry some new skills and expertise to drive the transformation that the industry is going through. It's not going to work the same way as it used to be. So I do believe that we need a new infusion of talent in the industry. From what we see right now, the hoteliers do move professionals and people in different roles. So there is a need for this multitasking sort of environment where people need to train new skills and they need to pick them up on the job. But at the end of the day, the most important thing for hoteliers is to gain the trust and loyalty back of their guests. That doesn't work with people that don't have skills. And I do believe that we see some gaps in the field right now. So what do I think we need in order to reattract the professionals or even attract the new talent? A couple of things that come to mind. First and foremost, better pay and benefits. I think as an industry overall, we haven't been very good about that. I think companies need to pay good attention to culture, mission, values, priorities, safety. All these things matters when the new generation, a new wave of workforce are trying to enter the industry. But for sure, we need some tech help as well. Tech to attract and retain talent, tech to recruit, tech to onboard employees in record time. In some cases, we need to see some people come in and get onboarded in one day. And then, of course, mobile, intuitive, and efficient applications, allowing employees to be part of the hospitality experience, which is why they chose the industry in the first place. Nobody wants to be on admin type of work, behind a plexiglass forever. So very, very important. And then my last point here is the importance of digital learning and the ability to have in the technology and in the application, like quick guided learning, so people can actually learn all the skills on the job. That's a need right now.
It's interesting because I as Max, I do teach a lot of newer generation, right? And it's interesting that I was talking to this university a couple of months ago. We were doing an e-lecture, and they told me that 90%, and this for me was quite astonishing. They told me that 90% of the students that actually study to work in the hospitality industry at some point leave before they even enter the hospitality industry, because they start working in luxury, for example, they start working on retail, for example. And I agree with you that it's a very attractive industry, and I do agree with you that it's something that it stays with us in our DNA, especially when you did it for a pretty long period of time. But I think that if they never done it in the first place, if they only learn about it on books, probably they will never have that desire to be part of the hospitality industry. Do you agree with that?
I do agree, and that's where I'm saying that I think that we need to do a better job as an industry to explain what are all the opportunities in the industry to begin with. I didn't start as part of the industry. My original job was a software engineer, right? So I started more on the development side. But once I entered the industry, I realized how much opportunity there is in each direction. I just don't think we're doing a really good job as an industry advertising all that, attracting this talent, explaining what all the opportunities you have to not just work in a cool industry, but to actually touch people's lives and really have an impact, which is what I think a lot of the new people or the younger generation is looking for.
That makes total sense. And Max, let's move to you. On your original viewpoint, you touched a topic that is quite central to me, and that's the rise of labor costs. Because on one side, Laura is telling us that probably we should engage with this newer generation with better salaries, and I understand that it's not always the case in hospitality, especially again for seasonal hotel or south of the world hotels. And while on your viewpoint, it was clear that you were, I would not say complaining about labor costs, but it's something that actually struck a nerve with you. So what is your perception of labor costs pre-COVID, and do you think these labor costs will increase post-COVID?
Well, I mean, Simone, first of all, labor costs in hospitality have been rising long before the pandemic. For example, in 2019, the last normal year, the average salaries in hospitality, I'm talking about North America, increased by 6.3% versus 3% for the average population. So in this sense, twice as higher increase in salaries in hospitality before COVID compared to the rest of the industries, if you will. The main reason was, guess what? Labor shortage, even before COVID. In 2019, there were 1 million untaken open positions in hospitality in North America. 1 million. That's pre-COVID. And just imagine what happened. I mean, if you the turnover in hospitality increased, actually in many cases it doubled. So typically we have a 20% turnover churn factor where, if you start the year with 100 employees, 20 will leave you before the end of the year and so forth. It became 30% in 2019. So employees were looking for better jobs, for better pay and so forth. So they were moving from one hospitality company to another and so forth. But on top of that, there were 1 million open positions. And of course, employers were forced to pay up, increase benefits, increase salaries, and so forth. So this whole notion began before the pandemic. Fast forward the pandemic, many layoffs and furloughs. Many people left the industry for other industries. And now when we need to staff up our properties, simply there are no candidates. And the main issue is that's not only hospitality problem. The same exact issue retail companies see. All the retail need employees. All of the manufacturing, they need employees. Small businesses need employees and they cannot find them. The same is in education, the same is in healthcare and so forth. So there are many industries where there are massive, I would say, shortage of labor. And going back to what Laura said, and I fully agree with that, when we talk about labor shortage, there are two types of employees. One is the employees that you can teach or train within few weeks so that they can do a comparatively good job. These are entry positions and so forth. So these are the massive open positions that we have. But also we have labor shortage for engineers, IT personnel in general, digital marketers, CRM, marketing specialists, revenue managers, and so forth, especially lately. So what they mean is that you have the two sides of the spectrum that currently hoteliers cannot find candidates for. These are the I would say unqualified or low qualified labor. This is the positions that you can train within few weeks, and the highly trained, highly experienced experts in their field. So in both sides of the spectrum, we have labor shortages. So I agree with Laura that the high end, the highly qualified specialists, we have to nurture people from outside of our industry. We have to attract them to the industry. We have to motivate them to come. On the other hand, we have to teach, and Simone, you mentioned, we have to teach people to be the next marketing leaders, the next revenue managers leaders, the next, I would say, technology leaders. I mean, I teach hospitality technology at NYU and digital transformation at Les Roches, and I'll tell you, I mean, these are young, very, I would say, ambitious people, and I see them as the future leaders in digital transformation and hospitality technology. The masses, I would say, the biggest problem is the low qualified or unqualified labor in hospitality, and this is where technology will replace sooner or later, and it will be sooner rather than later. I would say that the massive number of low qualified employees, all of the dangerous, mundane, and repetitive jobs that you see in hospitality, the machines are coming, the robots are coming, the automation is coming, and whether we like it or not, whether we believe that hospitality is a human-to-human touch industry and so forth, the machines, the automation, AI, and the robots are coming.
I do agree with you, and I always say that in our industry, we got something that I call the logistics of travel, and that is everything from scanning the passport when you arrive at the hotel, checking in, making a copy of the credit card. And it's like when you go to a supermarket, right? You can choose either to stand in line and being served by a human, but this will not add anything to your final experience, right? Or you can simply go to the machine, just check out and be out of the supermarket in 5 minutes. And I think at some points, and I do totally agree with you that, and this I think will solve two problems in one. The first one is probably it will solve labor shortage for low qualified people, and the other one, it will give more time to the humans to spend time with other humans. And again, I don't want to drop names, but there are some chains that are independent chains that are starting to integrate technology in the check-in process, and they're doing it smartly, so that you go to the hotel, you can set check-in, you can print your invoice, you can pretty much do anything as a prosumer, and then you can create this connection with a human being, because that human being is not now bound by repetitive tasks. It is not bound by the fact that he has to make a copy of your passport or make a copy of your credit card. So in that statement, I totally agree with you that technology is coming, and especially like after COVID, where we saw a huge increase in technology adoption, right? Especially with touchless technology. I think this will partially solve the problem. But I do agree with you that the shortage is even with experienced people, and this is probably where we will have more problems. And Jos, so what is your take? Because we got Laura saying that we should motivate new generation to come and join the industry, or even motivate people that actually left the industry to come back to the industry. And we got Max saying that technology could at least partially solve the problem with automation and robotization of the processes. What is your take on that, and where do you see the industry going over the next 5 years or so?
That's a very good question, I guess, where it goes. But I think both Laura and Max touched on two very good points. I think I would want to add a third one, and that is that the hotel, as the hotel operates themselves, how they operate today, that's also, I think, due for some changes, some updates from an operational point of view in the hotel. Prior to starting the discussion, Max was saying it should start way before the guest actually arrives at the hotel. I think there is a lot of opportunity there for hotels to improve that can have a positive effect on the need for labor, i.e. less labor need, but maybe higher skilled, being able to pay more, therefore, which I think is key. But I think I was riding my bike this morning with a friend of mine who actually operates a few hotels in the DC area, and I was telling him I'm going to do this webinar. So what he was thinking is, obviously he's a real hotelier. What he think about the hotel labor shortage, and he brought up some very good points. I think first one, of course, is that the whole furlough concept is great. It was not great at all, but it's something you have to do when you don't have any money coming in. But it also creates, I think, an issue of trust with the people that you have to furlough if you do that wrong. Which probably happens in many cases. When things go well, the regular employee does not necessarily benefit from the uptake. That all goes to the owner. And when things go bad, the employee gets basically time to go. So that doesn't create a good relationship between employee and hotel for people to come back. I think when the time is there to come back. I think that's one. I think second. There is, I think, I didn't know that there was a huge amount of shortage prior to COVID, as Max was saying earlier in the conversation. But I think pay is part of the problem, because pay, generally speaking, in hospitality is still lower than comparable jobs in other industries. So I think, and this is what my friend also said, hotels should try to look not only within the industry, what's a comparable wage, but also outside the industry, what's a comparable wage and benefits. Now, if those wages are becoming too high, then the only solution is to find ways to automate certain parts so you need less people to do the same things or to do it potentially better. I was in France last week checking into a hotel, all manually. 3 people behind the front desk. Not sure why that was needed, but for a 125-room hotel. But they were there, and they were there every 4 times I walked by that desk. So I think, to me, that's like there is room there to improve. And I think the third component is what I was saying. It's time to look at operations itself and truly innovate. Pre-arrival, during arrival, and definitely in the operations of hotels themselves. Why is it still needed for housekeeping to clean a room every night on many occasions? I mean, I certainly don't do that at home. When you go to Airbnb, that doesn't happen unless you pay extra for it. It also doesn't help the environment. But most hotels still operate by the simple process of getting the rooms touched or cleaned every night, without questions asked, basically. Now that requires housekeepers. That's a hard job. People are, it's hard to do that job on a day-to-day basis. It's not very, it's not as, like Laura was saying, it's exciting and beautiful to work in hospitality. I think housekeeping is probably one of them. It's tough. It's hard to clean up somebody else's mess every day. I think there's a lot of room of improvement in that area. Can we provide good service by adjusting what we in hotel operations do today? And I'm not a hotelier per se myself, but I've been, of course, in this business for a long, long time. And I started off in this business. But it was mentioned earlier, by Max, or why are people leaving? I left when I was in my late 20s, hospitality, for the simple reason because, hey, I want to have a weekend life, and I don't want to work 18 hours a day for $15 an hour. So that's why I ended up in the software industry. I love hotels, so I'm still attached to it. So I think that me as an example, I think that's happened quite a bit over the last 15 months, because Amazon here in the US has 80,000 jobs available. maybe pay, I don't know, maybe slightly more, but life's probably a little easier. It's much easier to drive a truck around and deliver a package than cleaning rooms and having to deal with people that are not happy with the meal or the check-in process. So I think that it's a combination of, optimizing what we do in hotels, improve on that. So bring in some automation, but automation can only do so many things. You can't automate yet cleaning the room. But you can automate the process and the assignment and make that more efficient. And that, I stayed in a hotel. I was remodeling my kitchen. So I stayed in a hotel for 6 weeks earlier this year. And it's funny, but I walked through the corridor and there's still the wooden clipboard with the clean list today. So that means somebody makes notes on that clipboard, then goes back to a desk, sits down on that desk, enters that data. I mean, my previous company, Stay in Touch, has all that stuff built in. You can basically use the tablet and do the same thing, and still people are not making that leap to that technology. And I'm hoping that the labor shortage today can help hotels to find new ways of improving their processes, because I think if the labor is not there, then the only way to fix it is to improve on your processes so that you are less reliant on that labor.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's an interesting angle. I really like the angle on housekeeping, because every time we talk about housekeeping and automation in housekeeping, the first thing that comes to mind is robots, right? And we know that it's quite hard to automate the actual cleaning, and it's a little sci-fi at this stage in time. But everything that has to do with housekeeping apps, for example.
But Simone.
Yeah.
Simone, housekeeping in New York City. Do you know how much housekeepers, which are most of them are unionized, get? $47 an hour. They are lawyers in some states, like South Dakota and so forth, that make less an hour, like compared to the housekeepers in New York City. And then because they're unionized, you cannot just lay off them. You cannot just decrease the number of housekeepers. They stay on staff, and you have to pay them. So what they mean is that, and second, a housekeeping job involves 175 tasks. There's no robot that can do all of the 175 tasks. But there are robots that can do 100 of those 175 tasks. So what we're talking about is not robots, but cobots, like collaborative robots that can augment the human team of housekeepers, help them. For example, Rosie by MaidBot, there are already 3,000 robots deployed at hotels in the United States. So they clean 20% faster than humans. They cannot tuck beds. And one of the changes that you will see in housekeeping is that tucking beds will be gone, because robots cannot tuck beds. And the question is, why do you even have to tuck the beds? Nobody tucks beds at home. Why do you even have to tuck the beds at the hotel? So this will be gone. The first thing that you will see as a change, so that robots, or at least humans, can do this twice as fast as they used to before the pandemic. So cobots, which are robots collaborating with humans, will definitely enter the marketplace. Actually, they're already here, but I'm talking about en masse. And you will see how task after task will be taken over by automation. Jos mentioned, the clipboards, and so all the housekeeping, scheduling, all of the, even can you go and check whether room 507 is clean? Really? That's so 1980s. So all of automation will replace to a great extent, and will solve all of those different tasks which right now only a human can do, I would say, as a whole.
I do remember it was, and I swear to God, it was a couple of years ago, and when we were all traveling for work, and I remember checking in this hotel. I'm not even naming it, and I tried to check in a little earlier than my check-in time, and the receptionist got in touch with the housekeeper through a walkie-talkie, And again, I'm honest to God, the thing that it did is just took this piece of technology from the 1980s and tried to get in touch with the housekeeper. And it began this bizarre exchange of ping pong communication between them. So I totally get your point. It had some kind of retro kind of vibe, but it was not the best way to implement the way you implement housekeeping in a property. So I totally agree with you and with yours. I think you took a very interesting angle on that. And the second question is very linked to the first one, and I would like to know if, in your opinion, we are too over-dependent on humans, or we will be able at some point to decrease this dependency on humans with the right use of technology. So Laura, let's start with you. Do you think, we all know that hospitality is a very human industry, of course. It's a very high-touch industry. But do you think at some point we will be able to be less dependent on the use of humans being in our industry?
Yeah, I think there is no doubt, and Max mentioned it, and you, Simone, and Jos as well. Technology, without a doubt, can assist with eliminating these highly repetitive and mundane tasks, and allow the workforce to focus their time on interactions that really enhance the guest experience and provide more value to hotels. I think there is lots of space there for the staff that's in the hotels to add to revenue opportunities. Why not turning your entire staff into some sort of salespeople by providing the technology? If we see a little bit what happened in the airlines, I think, I always look at those trends. It's not just what happened with the transformation and the fact that everything became self-service and therefore, the cost was reduced and this dependency. But if you think about the agents that are in the field right now, they will be able to sell you something at some point, an upsell or, some attributes in the hotel. So I think, that's where the mind needs to shift a little bit and try to figure out not necessarily how to always reduce your workforce. I think it's just a pivot in some cases to something of higher value towards revenue and increasing this guest experience. I'll say here that technology can also be very tricky. So if done badly, and we've seen that as well, it can be a disaster and it can provide a really bad experience that's just as memorable. So I would say better be sure that what you're implementing is right, and realize that you will need some new skills. Max talked a lot about, the professionals that we need. That's a strong point. And so better be sure that you have the right skills and better be sure that you're doing it right. And what we have seen successful in the field, we work, of course, with a lot of our customers. And what we see as providing successful results and a good output is spending time not necessarily just thinking about how am I going to reduce my cost today, but it's outlining the guest journey and the employee journey all in parallel. Really think about all those touch points before they arrive, right? So at the booking, at the dreaming phase, at the booking phase, at the pre-arrival, in stay and post, like really outline that guest journey and then pair it up with your employee journey and find their the right ways to increase or to improve the experience for the guests. For the employees, make the employees happier. They will provide a much better experience for the guests, and they will be much happier to stay in the industry. So I think there is tons of opportunity there when it's done right.
And I do agree with you that sometimes we're even biased, and I understand why hotels can be so biased when it comes to technology, because sometimes they have to deal with so many different tech providers that at some point technology becomes unmanageable for them. And I was talking to a chain in Czech Republic this morning, 20 hotels, and believe it or not, they didn't have any kind of integration between the PMS and the channel manager. So everything that actually arrived through any OTA, wholesaler, brand.com website, whatever. They had to print out the reservation and then manually insert it on the PMS. And I think this is exactly what you were aiming for, wrong use of technology, right? And Max, do you think it's our role as teachers to explain even to, not only to students, but even to hoteliers as well, that there is a right and a wrong way to use technology in hospitality?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, we have seen so many, I would say, premature technology implementations at the hotels. I mean, Hanana, the all robots hotel in Japan, which was a major hit in the press, but actually it turned out to be a major failure. And out of the 350 robots, half of them were fired, if you will, simply because they couldn't do what humans were supposed to do. The same with, we have got a number of clients that introduce robots, to roam the hallways and bring, like pizza or whatever, like delivery type of robots. And in the same time, they didn't want to invest in their website, which was 8 years old. So what I mean is that when you look at the customer journey, first of all, we have to understand that we're dealing with different types of guests today. We're dealing with exceptionally savvy, technology savvy, and digitally savvy customers today. And back in the day, we were hotels. I mean, I remember I was the general manager of a hotel in my early career. We always provided home away from home, and quite often it was better home away from home. That was until 10, 15 years ago. Right now, because people are so tech savvy, they have all of the different gizmos and digital stuff at home, from streaming to high-speed internet and all of the IoT devices and so forth, and mobile assistants and the likes. When they come to our hotels, we provide subpar home away from home. That's the sad truth today. Very few hotels provide adequate, at least equal experience to what people experience in their own homes. And technology, it's not just the flat screen TV. Technology has a lot to do with this. And we are falling behind big time. So in this sense, I believe that whether we like it or not, we have to adopt technology at least to the levels that people have at their own homes. So it's not a matter of whether we would need technology. Yes, we need technology, simply because we serve tech-savvy customers nowadays. But going back to your question, I think that the whole experience, hotels have to analyze all of their touch points, and I'm repeating, Laura, with the potential and existing and past guests, and then see how they can automate, they can improve these touch points, and whether they can save labor costs, if you will, at each of those touch points. For example, I give you a simple example. When people call your hotel, how many hoteliers have analyzed why people are calling the hotel? Do they want to make a reservation? Why don't they make the reservation on the website? Obviously, something is wrong with the website. Something is wrong with the content on the website, for example. If you don't provide mobile check-in, they will come and they will line up in front of the front desk, and you have to hire, twice as many front desk clerks as you would need if you enable mobile check-in, self-checking kiosks in the lobby for those that come via OTAs, for those that walk-ins and so forth. But you can analyze every single touch point with, again, the guest, and then figure out not how to reduce your labor force, but to save you the trouble of looking for employees, because simply, you cannot find them. So in this sense, technology will not lead to firing people. On the contrary, it will lead to hoteliers not having to look for non-existent employees.
Okay,
that's the whole point.
That makes total sense, and it was exactly what Jos was saying before when he checked in and he saw 3 clerks.
Yeah.
And you don't know exactly what they're doing. If you can automate all these boring, repetitive tasks, basically you can save time. You will need less staff, and you will not be in this position. And I think our industry is somehow subpar when it comes to technology adoption, and it's almost paradoxically because we were introduced to technology even back in the 80s with PMSs and so forth. So it's even we have a romantic view on technology, I don't know, or we just can't keep up with the rest of the companies. If you think like in retail, there's a level of automation that it's unthinkable in hotels right now. And I don't know if you agree with me, Max.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reluctance to invest in technology, in understand how technology can help you, if you will, if you're a hotelier. Second, you quite often assume that you have to hire people that understand technology at the property and so forth, like IT and the likes. I mean, let's put it this way. In hospitality, hotels invest in IT, which that's the summary for all of the technology at the property, 2.5% from room revenue. That's it. That's it, 2.5%. Ask me how much from revenue the OTAs invest in technology. 40%.
Yeah.
So that's where the main difference is that the OTAs are technology-first companies. We in hospitality are technology-last companies.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's unfortunate truth. So basically, we don't need to hire software engineers. Let Oracle and Roomdex hire them. But in our industry, we have to hire technologists, people who understand the business applications of technology. And this is what we're teaching at NYU and at Les Roches, again, to create technologists, people who understand, students who understand the business applications of technology in all aspects, from marketing to CRM to revenue management, of course, to operations, to all of the different again touch points and technology applications with different touch points with the potential current and past guests. So in this sense, this is what we need to create in hospitality. And guess how many leading hospitality schools around the world do not even touch the subject of technology.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, from Cornell to Lausanne to, again, leading hospitality schools, they don't even touch the question of hospitality technology, and this is simply sad.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And this is, I think we're seeing some kind of switch lately. And I'm talking about all these, even big brands, big hotel brands that understood that it cannot go on with the proprietary system. They are not, they work in hospitality, they do not work in technology. There's no reason for them to develop their PMSs or their CRMs, etc. And that is why you're seeing all these big brands and even independent hotels just asking people like Oracle, people like Roomdex, for example, to provide the technology. I totally agree with you that we don't need to know how to develop the technology in hotels. That's not the role of a marketing manager in a hotel. That's not the role of a clerk. But we need to understand at some level how this technology works. And Jos, let me go back to you, because I think Max introduced a pretty interesting light on the topic. Do you think with better understanding of how technology works, do you think we will be able at some point to reduce this over-dependency that we have in human employees?
For sure. I think that, I think the point really is understanding your operation and use that to optimize it with technology. But I mean, I think what Max also just said about that, a lot of the hotel schools do not actually teach technologists, but they have some basic stuff, but I think there's very few schools that teach how can you better optimize a hotel with technology, as an example. And that's kind of weird at this point in time. And I think I want to just kind of, through an example, maybe explain my point a little bit. I have to go back to the airlines for a short moment. Like, that took a long time before airlines allowed mobile check-in and the whole process. First it was domestic, and then towards the end of 2015-16, you'd also be able to internationally fly everything from your phone. You didn't have to see anybody other than the TSA agent checking on you that you are actually a secure person. But there was no need to go to the front desk to check in, to show your passport. All of that was in your app, good to go. Now, then COVID happened. And so a new process has to be developed, because now, in order for somebody to travel internationally, they have to show a vaccine or they have to show a negative COVID test. So, of course, their app and the whole process is not ready to do that. So I flew to France back and forth over the last 12 days, and I got this. So I was robbed from my previously easy to use self-experience. I had to go back to the gate to get myself checked in. I had to go to multiple steps to get on the plane. And that I found very annoying. I mean, there's no way around it, I guess, for now, because it's probably a temporary thing, the whole COVID checks. But it's annoying. And I think the same with hotels. If we're having labor issues and we're trying to provide touch of service to our guests, I don't think that anybody's booking a hotel because the check-in experience is so awesome at the front desk. That is not why you book a hotel. You book a hotel because you need to go somewhere, generally speaking, and then you have some, reasons why you would go to that particular hotel. Mostly it's price if it's business. If you are on vacation, you obviously look a bit more what's going on in the hotel before you buy. But then once you've purchased a hotel and you go to check in, the check-in process is, as I think Max said, it's an administrative thing. It's boring. It's kind of dumb. There's no need to do all that stuff at the front desk. There's no room to upsell to another, higher, better room because there's somebody behind you waiting, and it's not a great experience in general. Yet hoteliers still think that is the time they need to interact with the guests, but they don't. I stayed in Marriott a couple of years ago. I'll never forget. I arrive, the guy looks basically, I can see the top of his head, which was bald. That's all I saw. He asked me for my credit card, and he just basically kept standing looking at his screen, never looked at me during the check-in process. So wow. If you combine that experience and you want to actually give guests something special, I think what's a good thing to do is combine the lounge experience with the check-in experience and automate the check-in experience component. This gives you a lot of options. Now you have that person that only did check-ins and has a lot of time to stand around can also serve the guest with a cup of coffee while the guest is checking him or herself in, on the self-service kiosk, or already has checked in and just needs a key, for example, when they did it on the mobile phone. The other thing that brings is, instead of having to have a person that manages the lounge and a person that manages the front desk, you can basically have one person that does both, because the administrative component of check-in is completely gone, or almost gone. It's automated. And me as a guest now have a much better experience, because I walk in and I'm being offered, can I get you a beer, coffee, whatever, anything you need while I'm checking myself in. I think most importantly for hotels, this sort of combination of the experience for guests interacting with the hotel combined into one person, or maybe two if it's a bigger hotel, you can basically take one person off the payroll, which then allows you to give that original person a higher salary that might be more competitive with other industries. And I think it's that mindset of why, the check-in experience has not changed. I years ago, when I worked at Microsoft, I did a webinar about the oldest hotel in the world was from Japan or whatever, somewhere a long time ago, the year 1200. I think for centuries all we used is a guest book and a rack at the front desk. Then 50 years, and then 50 years ago, the computer systems came. But the experience itself did not change. It's the same experience that it was for the last 700, 800 years. And I think it's time now with the digital opportunities, as Max and Laura mentioned also, for hoteliers to look at how do we operate hotels? What do guests today really want? And how can I really make a lasting impression if I need to have that experience, in personal interaction with the guest? That needs to be accelerated, and that requires maybe a course by itself in hotel schools, or maybe it's just the thinking of, okay, there's so many technology opportunities today. Let's find ways to combine those, still give a service experience, but with less people and more focused on the service aspect rather than the administrative aspect.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And you remembered me that a friend of mine and a panelist in Hospitality Net as well opened a pretty interesting LinkedIn discussion a few weeks ago, and it was on the terms of every tech vendor in hospitality is talking about guest experience, improving the guest experience. But exactly like you said, Jos, when it comes to check-in, we're doing exactly the same thing we were doing 50 years ago. The experience didn't change at all, and so there should be a better way to integrate technology into day-to-day operations. Okay, that's great. We got 8 minutes left. We had several comments from viewers. You can see it on your screen as I talk. So I will not be able to address all of them. I'm very sorry, but if you want to ask any more questions, just drop it on LinkedIn, and I'm sure the panelists will get back to you if you're interested. And I have one last question for you, though, and that is coming from the audience. And I just ask you to be very concise. We got probably 3 minutes each. What is your personal #1 recommendation for hoteliers in dealing with labor shortage? Laura, a couple of minutes.
I have to have 2. So there is a short term, and in order to really address the gap that you're having right now, and we've seen this happening, is like attract with better pay, with really strong message. I don't think there is a way around it for right now. I think the second step is probably, hire one of Max's technologists, one of Max's students. I think a tremendous opportunity here to redefine, like I said, the entire journey, like spend the time really understanding the guest journey and redefining it for both being able to attract the guest and really provide that experience and trust and loyalty, create that, but also then to retain the talent and really provide that employee experience as well. So I'd say it's both. It's a short term and it's a medium term, if you want, action item that you need to take.
That makes total sense. Max?
Where do I begin? But again, immediate, I would say, look at providing contactless experience, not only check-in, the full contactless experience from mobile check-in to mobile selection, pre-selection of rooms, to bypassing the front desk to begin with, to the mobile locks and the likes. IoT devices in the room so that you don't need the humans to check on whether the guest has left the room or not, and so forth, to self-ordering and do-it-yourself type of applications, self-ordering, for example, kiosks or tablets in the F&B and so forth. So the full contactless experience, if you start there, you will immediately see that you will not need 30% of the employees that you needed back in 2019.
Okay, that's a big statement. So you're saying that with the right technology, you can save up to 30% of staff.
Oh no, you can save, if you look at the full customer journey, from the dreaming and planning phases to the booking phase to the experiencing phase when they're at the property, and then to the post-stay, the retention phase. If you do a full analysis of all the touch points, then you won't need half, 50% of the employees that you needed back in 2019. Very simple. You won't need half, and believe me, this will happen not within the next 20 years, within the next 5 years.
Okay. Yeah. I think I can agree with you. I think it will be a problem for integrating systems, which it's always the same problem with
Opera Cloud. Go with Opera Cloud or stay in Touch Cloud.
Yeah, exactly. And
no
that is
problem.
that is probably
no integration problems.
That is probably enough material for another discussion on how you choose your tech vendors. And that's a good one. And Jos, so you got 2 minutes. What's your last take on the topic?
I think Max stole most of what I was going to say already, but
doesn't he always?
Yeah, I think the most important component is definitely look at what my friend that I back with this morning said. Look at what other industries and comparable jobs pay and offer. That has to be in line. We can't think that we can keep having cheap labor just to make things happen. And if you can't find the labor, then the only other solution that you have is to find ways to automate and reduce the need for staff, like Max said, which is very easy to do pre-arrival, during check-in. It's a little harder with housekeeping, but even there's a lot of opportunity. And I think, the whole thing, the success of Amazon, the whole online experience, is so much easier to buy anything. The same thing applies to people buying or upgrading or ordering an early check-in or something else on the phone before they arrive at the hotel. It's so much easier to do that than having to go through a conversation in person. There's less friction. It's easier to buy. And better than that, the Amazon thing is, it's kind of boring. Then it comes to your home in a box. And if you do online, if you buy stuff online for a hotel, you do an upgrade online for a hotel, you get to go in person to that nice hotel, which everybody is dying to do after a year and a half not being able to go anywhere. So I think it's a win if hotels can really look at their operations and find ways to reduce. Or I think they also need to think about: is the in-person touch really that we provide today really truly guest service, or is it just administration? So that's a good point. That's what I would say.
That's a great point. So we're running out of time. I just want to thank you all for joining me today. Laura from Oracle, Max, consultant and professor at the New York University for hospitality, and Jos, CEO of Roomdex. I want to thank Hospitality Net that organized everything. You will, if you missed the panel, you can watch it again. This will be on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on the homepage of Hospitality Net. Thank you very much. I hope we will have a better year than the last couple of years we had now, and I hope we can travel again, and possibly with less friction that we used to before COVID started. So thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.